Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Paul da Silva, and although many of you may know me as a professor of biology and environmental science at the College of Marin, I'm speaking here tonight as an individual. And I realize that note-taking is hard, so I've written down all my comments and I will submit them. Relax. First of all, I commend the MMWD for its efforts to prevent further loss of biological diversity and to reduce the negative impacts of future large fires in the watershed. These efforts are essential to counteract decades of human interference in the natural ecosystems of the watershed. They are an important local initiative to address problems that are not only local, but also of regional, national, and worldwide significance. Invasive species are one of the major threats to biological diversity. If our native species inhabiting the watershed are to be conserved, the invasive species must be controlled. The actions proposed for control of brooms and other weeds are good starting points, but they do not include evaluations of benefit and cost of elimination of all major stands of these weeds within the watershed. This is significant because both the populations of weeds and the cost of controlling them can be expected to increase exponentially in the future. Likewise, cumulative impacts of all threats to native species are also expected to increase exponentially. For these reasons, it would be useful to have estimates of the costs and benefits of reducing populations of weeds in all parts of the watershed to levels projected for zones 1 and 2, using the different combinations of tools listed in the current proposals, without any dollar amount restrictions on the budget needed over the short term. This would allow calculations of opportunity costs, or long-term advantages and disadvantages of investing different amounts of funds at different times in programs to preserve our biological diversity, a truly priceless heritage that we must pass on to future generations. Evaluations of effects of biological and chemical pollution should be clearly balanced. Impacts of invasive species should include not only threats to native species, but also effects on ecosystem functions, such as fire frequency and nutrient cycling. They should estimate the potential for trophic cascades, as changes to the producers have repercussions higher up the food chains. They should consider the synergistic effects of the invasive species and other stressors such as global climate change. They should take into account regional effects, as changes to the local ecosystem impact migratory species that move outside the boundaries of the watershed. The effects of chemicals should include not only those of herbicides and surfactants, but also of others likely to be present on the watershed or come into contact with humans, such as MTBE, phthalates, and motor oil. Calculations of relative risks posed by all of these chemicals would help policymakers decide which are acceptable and which are not. Once again, the plan's process of calculating costs and benefits of actions to control particular invasive species on one part of Marin is a courageous attempt locally to deal with a problem of worldwide importance. Therefore, comparisons with efforts to meet similar challenges in other areas may prove illuminating. Thank you.
Not bad. When the yellow light comes on, you have, I think, is it 30 seconds?
After Dr. Rothman, it will be Phyllis, and I'm sorry, I can't make out the last name.
Saber.
Is that you?
Thank you.
It's not you? So is Phyllis Saber here?
That's Phyllis Saber.
Okay, come over here, come over here. Take a seat over here, please. Well, it had to be really quick, so we'll look forward to that.
My name is William Rothman, 14 Cliff Road, Belvedere. I ask that the EIR include the following. An evaluation of the cost advantages and safety from a pesticide danger exposure perspective of adopting the plan for weed control which MMWD's own consultant advised in 2009 and which would have cost an extra $850,000, which can be raised by charging $1.10 per meter per month. And he made clear, Leonard Charles made clear, the MMWD's own consultant, that that alternative, without pesticides, except for putting a little bit on the stumps of cut trees, that alternative would, and I quote from his report, the MMWD report, this alternative would meet the goals and objectives relating to fire hazard management, and again I quote, it would have the major advantage over the other alternatives of preserving uninvaded habitat from weed expansion. In other words, no pesticides, an extra $1.10 a month on the meter, and you wouldn't have to have pesticides and you wouldn't have a fire danger or any new involvement. Number two, an explanation, the EIR actually includes an explanation of why the consultants do not feel that they cannot come to a conclusion about the safety of the pesticides, because the EPA right now is doing a study on the endocrine disruptor effects, and those results will not be available until 2022. And yet the report will be 9 years before that, so how can they possibly evaluate the safety? Furthermore, I feel that the EIR must call for the employing of the services of a medical toxicologist to evaluate all medical toxicology research findings. The consultant who's mentioned in the RFP, Susan Kegley, has made it clear that she's completely unqualified to deal with medical toxicology. She made it clear by arranging for a medical toxicologist to handle that aspect when she was last asked to consult for the water district. Finally, and there are other aspects but I'll submit it in writing, evaluation of the significance for the possible spread of West Nile virus of the results of several studies between 2005 and 2012 by Dr. Rick Relia of the University of Pittsburgh concerning glyphosate's harm to amphibians, which could lead to an outbreak of West Nile virus in Marin because amphibians would be killed. It's recognized that they kill tadpoles, etc. Glyphosate kills them, and so they would no longer be available to eat the mosquito larvae. I'll stop here, and I'll submit the other things in writing. Thank you very much.
After Phyllis, David Curtis.
David Curtis.
Yeah.